Here we go. And you are live.
Thank you. We'll begin the Housing Committee meeting of Akron City Council. I would like to ask if Sarah, the Clerk of Council, will you please roll call the members?
Sure. Fusco.
Aye.
Holland.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Connor. All members are present except for Connor.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
So
Motion
moved.
to approve. Second.
Get this first and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. Thank you for that. Today we are asked the committee to meet President Somerville and I this past week. Last week we had taken a tour of the Erickson, what's the official name? Margot, the official name of the
Mr. Green, can you unmute yourself? Is it Erickson Homes?
Erickson, yeah, the
Homes.
so again, please.
Are we talking about the apartment complex?
Yes, that we had,
Yeah, Erickson Homes.
Erickson, that's what I thought. Okay, Erickson Homes, we had taken a tour, President Somerville and myself, and what we had seen and what we had heard was disturbing in terms of the housing that is provided for the folks, for the tenants there. And I understand there's an effort moving forward. I know council has been involved in this particular issue, not only here but other places. But we wanted to give an opportunity to the folks that we had met with, and that would be Raymond Green, of course, who's on the line right now, and I believe that's Dee McCall, who was present with us as well, and maybe one or two others who are going to be with us here today. And listen, I thought this time for council, for this committee, our best thing to do is just to listen and find out and learn what goes on and what has gone on in the past, and some of the ideas of what, or at least listen to what the thoughts are of those that live within the Erickson allotment there. And then after that, we'll give council, it's Monday, but we're going to have more discussion about this. I will tell those present that we plan and intend on having further discussion with regards to this particular issue. And so this is just the beginning. But after we hear from the tenants and from Raymond Green, we'll open it up and give everyone, I'd like to just give one chance to everyone to make a comment or ask a question or what have you. And then what we'll do is we'll close it up. Again, this is going to be a long run. This is going to consist of a lot of meetings moving forward and a lot of discussion. So with that, I'm going to open it up to President Somerville. Would you like to say something, or would you like me just to go ahead and introduce Raymond Green?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I do want to just take an opportunity to say a couple of things. I thought it was important to have Raymond Green and Dee McCall, who has created the Housing is a Rights tenant union, and they have done an absolutely amazing job organizing tenants. They've been having tenants put their money into escrow. They have reached out to Marsha Fudge's office. They have held a couple meetings with Marsha's contact person. I think they're planning another meeting to come in the next week or so. They have done a phenomenal job just making sure that tenants at Erickson Homes know their rights. And so they've been providing a lot of education. And so I just thought it was really important that council really hears the work that they've been putting in. I mean, they've been doing this work. I think they mentioned to us, Councilman Fusco, for the past 5 years. So that's just how long this work has been going on and the issues have been going on at Erickson Homes. So I just thought it was really important that council hears from the Housing is a Right Tenants Union, so that we can support them in this work and address the concerns over at the Erickson Homes.
Thank you, President Somerville. So let's go ahead and begin. And Raymond Green, we will thank you first of all for all your hard work that you've done in organizing and getting giving lift to the Housing as a Right Tenant Council, starting, getting it moving forward, and all the great work you've done along with Dee and Mika. So I'll open it up, and Mr. Green, by all means, please share with committee.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for entertaining us this afternoon on this very important subject. Thank you, Mr. Fusco and Madam President, for coming out Wednesday. I know you could have been doing anything, but you chose to come take a tour on your day off. I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you for being here today and just listening. Just want to know what's going on and want to know how you can be of any help. Right now, what I want to do is I want to turn over to Ed Mika to give you, as an on-the-ground tenant that's living there, someone that's been moved in and out different apartments with the same issues. I want to allow her a chance to speak around her experiences. But then I want to bring Dee in to allow her to speak as a former tenant, but as the original organizer on this housing coalition from 5 years ago when we first started this. And then I will come in and wrap it up with my experience and what we're looking to accomplish. For those that don't know, I am Ray Green. I'm the executive director of the Freedom Block. We are currently housing this Housing is the Right Tenants Coalition. That is also coalition is filled with members from legal aid, fair housing, and serve the people, Akron also. And we're working diligently together to provide a voice for tenants throughout the city of Akron. This is one of our bigger problem areas here, but it's not limited to this complex. And at this time, I'll bring Ed Mika in to speak towards her experience.
Hello, I'm Ed Mika. I'm the president of the Erickson Tenant Union. My experience living there, I moved there 2020, February. It's been real bad. Like far as I even emailed them pictures of I bought my brand new furniture. I brought this brand new washer and dryer that I'm still paying on, and I get the clothes out of the washer and dump them on the brand new ottoman. It's a dead mouse in my clothes. This is a couple months after I moved in 2020. So, you know, nothing was never done with that. I had to go get foam to put in the walls to seal the holes up and stuff. And then I get moved to Key's place, one of the worst parking lots in there. And my car was hit by a drunk driver. My apartment broken into all within the same week. I talked to management so many times, like, I need help, get me out the parking lot. I feel like we in danger or whatever. They went and told the people downstairs, this is the new management, KMG. They talked to the girl downstairs, and me and that girl ended up getting into it because they told her what I told them, because it was her boyfriend who hit my car and all this other stuff. So me and her getting into it, I really felt like we was in danger then, because the girl downstairs ended up getting shot by the boyfriend. I'm complaining to them multiple times about what's going on. Nothing happened. So I got fed up because they took my rent up after they downsized me to a 2-bedroom. And I got 2 children. They took me out my 3, put me in a 2, raised my rent. I have recordings and everything of them saying like, oh, our fault, you weren't supposed to have your rent raised or whatever. And they still haven't reimbursed me for the rent, none of that. Me as the tenant president, I've been working with the other tenants too. And I've been noticing like majority of the elderly women up there, that they are charging them $1 a day for late fees for rent when they never even told these people that their rent went up. They don't have no signed documents saying that their rent went up. And that's $30 extra a month for rent on these elderly people. Like, I'm having problems in my new apartment right now. I was supposed to go take my GED class this morning. I had to cancel that because my downstairs was flooded from the drains in the laundry room. So I'm just here to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. Before I met Raynham, I felt hopeless. I didn't know what to do, but they helped me learn my rights and what I need to do to move forward. So that's why I'm here talking to you guys to see if you could help us move forward.
Thank you. Thank you for stepping up and bringing this to our attention. And Mika, President and Mika, thank you very much for that.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on.
KD.
Okay. Sorry, we're having technical difficulties over here.
Dee, do you have another device that's close to you that might be getting the audio from that?
Okay, you good? Okay, sorry about that, everyone. My name is Dee McCall. I am a community organizer with the Freedom Block, and I used to once upon a time live in the Chesapeake townhomes and organized when the Ericksons, when they were called the Rosemarys and Hillwood 2. What I've been realizing within my times of organizing is that the conversation was had that there were needs to improve the living spaces within the Erickson homes. However, just from the time of me living and organizing, I started in 2018, and up until now, the same issues are still the problem. I was able to request the inspection documents from the housing division and also the complaint forms. I didn't get the amount that I needed. I requested the last 5 years, and I've only received maybe 10 documents within the last 2. I'm still waiting for my order for the inspections. However, I was able to find a document from a housing inspector that identified the Erickson homes to be a nuisance, and it should not be livable. I gave that paperwork to President Somerville, and that is also a public request. I don't have the actual copy on hand. I gave that to President Somerville. And then just the recurring issues that are happening within the Erickson is still the same. It's just worsened over the years because you still have the same complaints about the public safety, about the housing that is currently occurring as we speak, and it stops. I created a flow chart that I sent to president and vice president of council, just of how the complaint should work. And I could break that down for you all, and also have them send you a copy of the flow chart. So when a tenant has an issue, you automatically complain to the property management, the management company, and the maintenance. And then when they don't respond or they don't come out, then I request the tenants to fill out a housing complaint. And then from the housing complaint, we contact our wards person and then our county council person to identify whatever the issues are. However, when we're making those 4 calls of doing the housing complaint, contacting city council, and then contacting county council, we're always referenced to go talk to someone else. And the issue is after contacting or after placing that housing complaint, after contacting our wards person, and after contacting our county council, where do we continue? Because what I found out is when the inspectors from the housing department comes out to inspect the properties, all they do is do a recommendation, and that recommendation has stopped. So they will identify in their inspections report what the issues are, and then send that issue to the property management company and then the owners. And then if they don't respond, it just stops there. So there's an issue in just getting issues handled, because after the housing complaint, after you contact all of the people that we are supposed to contact, then we're at a standstill. So just with communicating with the tenants that are having these issues, I'm having a problem communicating, because if this is the protocol of how to get issues fixed, there's a hole in this protocol. Because if after the inspector identifies that the property should not be livable, then it should be vacated, if I'm not mistaken. However, there are still people living in there. There's many inspection reports that identify that there's an infestation of rodents and bed bugs. However, there are still people living in these spaces. So I'm here today requesting, is there any sort of accountability or follow-up after the inspector's reports are published in identifying the issues and the ordinances that they're breaking? Because also within the ordinance, they identify the different steps that you have to take. And someone should be getting sued or someone should be going to jail at this point, because there are people dying in these apartment buildings. So I say all of that to say, after reviewing the ordinances and then actively contacting those who are supposed to be contacted for these issues, I am still at a standstill, and there are still people living in these deplorable spaces.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you for
That's
all
all
your
I have.
hard work. Thank you. Thank you very much. Certainly appreciate it. And that's why we're here. We're here to help. Raymond Green, and I do want to recognize Linda Moby. And Linda, we're gonna hear from, I know you had inspected these properties as well, but we'd like to hear from Mr. Green first, and then we'll select you first. Mobian, thank you.
Thank you again for allowing us to come in again today. As you have heard from Ed, Mika, and Dee, these problems have been existing for a while. The biggest frustration for us, first of all, we understand these particular apartments are HUD, but this is a citywide problem. The problem that we really have and we really want to resolve with y'all is the lack of cohesion and communication. We are to report these problems to the management company, which makes sense. But then the city has a layer of protection that allows us to make complaints that are not being resolved. It allows us to make complaints to the housing division of the city of Akron, which I believe is a great process, because ultimately this city council, this body, is responsible for the citizens in this city. So y'all should know everything that's going on. So I believe it's a great process. Where we're having problems at is where we make the complaint to you all, and then it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't, you come out and expect, you create a report, and then that report goes to, we don't even know where the report goes to. But it doesn't coordinate with the county. It doesn't coordinate with HUD. It doesn't coordinate with the health department. As I talked to Margot and Fusco last week, a baby died in these apartment complexes. That death was deemed from mold by Children's Hospital. How does Children's Hospital not call the city health department, or not call the county health department, or not call the management and immediately condemn the building? It's just a lot of things that's going on that's not providing a cohesive communication path that allows everybody to knows what's going on, that allows us to come up with a solution. The minute that baby died, it should have triggered something somewhere. The minute this report came to city council or came to the housing division of city council, this building should be condemned. It should have triggered something to further more communications to exactly figure out where we're at and it should have never got to the point to where we're at now. So, we're looking for immediate relief for these people, but we're also looking for, like, how do we make this system better? How do we communicate with each other in a departmental level that allows for these problems not to slip through the crack? More than one baby has died in here. If we take the health, we're working with Children's Hospital and City Hospital now to do a health fair. We want to know the lead levels and the mold levels in the citizens that's living in these apartments. These are the things that need to be done. And the systems that are currently created are not allowing these things to be done and not allowing for this communication to happen. And at the end of the day, the citizens that you represent are suffering. And I'll pass it back to Mr. Fusco at this time.
Okay. Thank you again for all your hard work, Mr. Green. And we have, as I mentioned early on, we have a lot of work to do on this, and we're going to continuously meet on this until we come up with some solutions. And what struck me, Mr. Green, was what you'd mentioned is just the communication piece. And I think everyone will work within our lane, but we need to widen that lane and include others in the discussion. That's going to be the mission of this committee and all of us here on council. I've spoke to a couple of our colleagues here. There's a lot of concern. I will tell you that in terms of what's been reported, what's been discussed. We wanted to give council an opportunity to ask a couple questions here and to learn. And then what we're going to do is we're going to continue this, and we will continue the discussion and broaden that and include other partners in this as well. And our goal is to increase and make it just a safe place. I think that's what I'm hearing from you, is just make it a safe place, and that's not occurring. So that's one of the goals. I'm sure we will develop more along the way. I'd like to recognize Ms. Amobian on this. I know she's spoken on this last week, and she's very interested and also had taken the time to make an inspection of the property as well. Ms. Amobian?
Thank you, Ms. Fusco. First of all, let me thank you, Reverend Green, and the two ladies who spoke today. And I think at least one of you, if not both of you, spoke last Monday. So that's important. And I want you to know that your councilwoman obviously has been fighting this battle or trying to fight this battle by herself. But now that she has the full attention of the council, we expect to get to the bottom of this. I really didn't know that a child or children have died as a result of the mold and other things. So that brings in the health department. So we will be talking with Donna Skoda, the commissioner for the county, because at some point, this should be taken out of the hands of management. And if the facility is not fit for human habitation, then it needs to be condemned. And then it's up to all of us to get together to figure out what is the plan to find a placement for the people that are living there in those conditions. So I really thank you for bringing all this to our attention, because the more I hear, the more disturbed I am, because these entities should all be talking to one another, and we should have been addressing this some time ago. So just bear with us. As soon as we figure out how we get this coordinated to do something, we will. And I promise you, it won't be 6 months, it won't be a year. It may be a matter of weeks, I hope, but it's not going to go unnoticed by this council. And I thank your councilwoman for all she's done, because without her taking the leadership and continually talking about this, I don't think we would have ever gotten to this point. So, what I hear is atrocious. No one should be living in a civilized community with these kinds of issues and conditions to our awareness. And this is a real problem that someone needs to take leadership. And I know many times when you get into these kinds of situations, people start passing the ownership from one person to another. So it's like you start a whole new process. And I don't think we need to get into that. That should not happen. Hopefully we can do something as immediate as possible to close these places down because they don't sound like they're fit for habitation, and we should not be subjecting our residents to these kind of conditions. So again, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention, and I can assure you that we will work together to try to get something done to address this. This is deplorable, and should not be accepted and will not be. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Movian. Thank you for your comments. I recognize Ms. Holland, Ward 1.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco. Either Ms. McCall or President Edmikia, or possibly Reverend Green. First of all, I want to thank you for your activism and advocacy here. I have a few questions that are purely procedural. I just want to understand where things are. I believe it was Reverend Green who indicated that tenants' rent has been escrowed, which suggests to me that there is a pending landlord-tenant matter. And I guess I'm wondering, is Community Legal Aid representing the tenant group? And what's the status of that, if you could kind of bring us all up to date?
Yeah, no problem. Not all of the tenants are putting their rent in escrow. That is not needed at this time. Some residents are putting their rent in escrow because of the lack of repairs and the fact that when they complain, they received eviction notices. Yes, Legal Aid is part of this coalition and representing those tenants. Those tenants vary throughout the city of Akron, not just in Erickson. But yes, Legal Aid and Fair Housing is involved in those matters. We have stopped, I want to say, 3 or 4 evictions already. Those people have been moved, but as Margo and Fusco seen last week, they have been moved to conditions that's no better and sometimes even worse than the condition they're already in. So that's where we're at with that phase of it. We have tried to schedule a meeting with the management company. They wanted us to meet with their lawyer. We said that's unacceptable. They came back and said that they will meet with our lawyer and possibly one tenant. We said that's unacceptable. We have a coalition. Everyone's voices need to be heard. Finally, they caved in and said they would meet with us. We're just right now waiting on a date for that meeting. But in the meantime, residents are still being harassed. I'm pretty sure you all seen the last news coverage of this with the lady's house. She is now currently being evicted after that news aired. They have now in the process of evicting her. And she goes to court tomorrow. So we're trying to stop that eviction now also. But the management company has just been unresponsive. They want to talk to the lawyers. That's just unacceptable. And then they want to put the management company on us. They put the management company to run interference and then to put in eviction orders. So that's where we're at with the process. But yes, Legal Aid is part of this process, and so is Fair Housing.
Great. Thank you very much, Reverend Green.
Thank you. I know Representative Mosley has been involved with this as well on a phone call a while back in reference to the safety piece. And so I know there's been a lot of work done even before this with regards to council, as mentioned earlier. I see Mr. Kamer's hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank you and President Somerville for going out and taking the invitation by Mr. Green and taking a look at the conditions. And I would love to have that opportunity to come and take a look for myself. I know I was offered on Veterans Day and I was not able to make it, but I would encourage Mr. Green to reach out to us, even all of council, and see if we can all take a tour of these apartments. So I have a lot to say, but I'll keep it short. I think obviously Mr. Fusco said we'll continue this conversation. I want to move forward. I want us all to move forward. And I want to say Miss Dean McCall, she's been calling me a few times. We've talked on the phone a couple times, through email. So please continue that, Dee. Please continue to reach out to me, email me, and call me, because I enjoy those conversations, and that's how we can move forward. I know a lot was spoken today about Erickson Apartments, but not really anything was mentioned about Wilbeth Arlington. And I just want to bring that to the conversation. I know it's part of the conversation, but in today's meeting, Wilbeth Arlington was not mentioned. So I want everybody to know that, that's important. That is in Ward 7. And I want us to continue that conversation. But really, Mr. Chairman, I know we'll have a lot of discussions moving forward. And I want to move forward with this process. But I really would like to know how we got here. When I heard about 5 years of working on this, complaints, the lack of communication, like Mr. Green said, I would really like us to, I don't want to talk about so much in the past or go backwards, but I'm really anxious to find out how we got here, with the lack of communication, with our departments, the children's hospitals, the county, whatever it is. Hopefully moving forward, we can try to find out, what the missing pieces were, especially when I hear the word 5 years. That's really concerning, because nothing should be taking that long to have these kind of conditions. So thank you. And I look forward to getting a tour. I would love that opportunity again. And please offer that to all of council. And that's it. I look forward to moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kamer, for your comments, and Mr. Green and I will coordinate that, and we'll figure out a day and time to invite the council for that tour. Okay, Ms. Mobian, I see your hand is up again.
Yes, I'm curious. Have we had the housing division or someone provide us with some direction as to what leads to condemnation of an apartment building? And I know they mentioned the health department, and I'll certainly reach out to Donna Scotta and see what can be done there. But at some point, when the health conditions are so deplorable and they can create such awful conditions that lead to a child's death, then I am just curious as to what does it take to condemn and expect the owners to shut it down and find placements for people. I mean, what does it take? And that's what I want to find out from Donna Scotta. If I can, I understand the legal part that's involved, but at some point when the health conditions are so bad that sometimes that supersedes some of this stuff. So I'll reach out to Donna when I get back in town. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to now go to Representative Mosley from Ward 5.
Thank you, Chairman Fusco. Just briefly, just to respond to my colleague, Councilwoman Amobian. Donna has been contacted. In fact, I put her and Dee in a group text and introduced them to each other to make her aware of some issues that they were dealing with up there. And then they've been in contact with each other, my understanding since then. Yeah, it's like Councilman Kamer said, this has been going on for quite some time. I've been on council. It'll be 8 years in January, and it was one of the first things that was brought to my attention almost 8 years ago. I've had family who lived up there. My niece lived up there for 6 months. We moved her out because of the conditions. My cousin and his wife lived up there. They moved out, but they stayed there over 5 years, but the conditions were just too bad. They went out and just decided to just pay rent, full market rent somewhere because of the conditions. I had a good friend that I grew up with who did exactly what Anika did. She got the residents rallied up. Her apartment had mold in it. They had wires running across the lawn. They evicted her. And she had quite a few residents. She actually was the precinct committee person for up there. And they eventually ended up evicting her. But in that time, again, from almost 8 years back, the ownership has changed so many times. Every time you make headway with someone, it's changing to someone else. Or if they have a property manager, they never want to, they won't return your calls. One of the very first things I did when I came on council is I had a meeting with all the different housing complexes in the city of Akron, and they were the only ones, Erickson, which was Hillwood at the time, and Chesapeake were the only two who would not send a representative. And we had that meeting down at Cascade with community builders, and they were the only two who would not send a representative. And that was back then. And even when we had a different HUD secretary, even letters that were sent to the HUD department were never responded to. So this is a longstanding issue with a paper trail 100 miles long. And I do commend Dee for all the work that she's doing up there in Amika, because she has the most to lose here because she lives up there. And I would hate to see her getting evicted because of her being an advocate for those residents. So I think anything that we can do sooner rather than later to make sure that not only Amika, but those other residents are protected, even if that means we have to get them moved out of there. I think anything we do should be expedient to protect them. Thank you.
Thank you, President Somerville.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make sure that all of council was aware that Erickson Homes is currently under rehab. So they're actually rehabbing these apartments. But myself and Councilman Fusco, we noticed that even on the rehab apartments, the ones that are complete or that are supposed to be complete are worse than the apartments that have not been touched. So I'm really hoping that on our end, the city end, that we can help through this process of rehab and make sure that, finishing is happening, making sure that necessary permits are being pulled, because it was disturbing to see a fully renovated apartment look the way that it did.
Yeah, the work has been just really shoddy when you go there and you see it, and it's awful.
Yes.
And that's, and the one thing, and that's why I do want us to work in an expedient method. I do want us to, move the ball down the field. Okay. But I do also wanted to make sure that we're getting all the information that we can to make an educated decision, because the thing of it is that the one thing I had witnessed was a window that you could basically, between the window, the new window frame and the frame of the house, you could see through. You could read a newspaper through that. Okay, that's not us. That's not the housing division. That's inspectors, but it's not, because it's a replacement. If it was a remodel altogether and you're moving walls and you're moving electricity, then you take out a permit. But in this particular case here, all they're doing is like whenever they replace a toilet or they replace a sink and a vanity, there's no permits on that. All they're doing is replacing something. So that's one of our hurdles, to be honest with you. Whenever they replace a window, if it's the same exact size, no permits. So that's part of our, and that's why I want to make sure that we're all, aware of all these little nuanced laws and such that we have to work within. So that's just one little piece of the puzzle. And I have a feeling we've got a lot of them that we're gonna have to put together. Mr. Malik in Ward 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, to thank the folks who came before us today and last week, Ms. Minter, Ms. McCall, Reverend Green. And I think that, and also thank you to President Somerville and Vice President Fusco. I think this is a really healthy conversation. And it sounds like we have some, clear action steps, get more information about these specific two complexes and kind of triage that and work through that with our housing division and try to understand, what has been the past experience with complaints and follow up and what are the remedies, whether it's fines or, condemnation or what have you going forward. But then also take a look more broadly at, how we tackle this issue across the city. We have we have a housing division that does a lot of work, but has a lot of resource constraints. And so we have to look at, are inspections just complaint based, or is there a way we can increase our ability to do inspections? If we are going to be holding landlords to a much higher standard, which I believe we should, we also are going to have to grapple with the fact that, rents are going to go up for folks. And and that's actually reflected in the administration's proposal around housing rehab, right? And in the matching funds that, they describe being eligible for some of that. So it sounds like we have kind of a starting point. I think, would also like to look at whether there are other things that legal aid or fair housing might be able to weigh in on, like a tenant's bill of rights. I think those are things that other cities have looked at to create a very, we have a housing code, but, specific things so that these issues around retaliation are not an issue. So I'm really excited for the work going forward, but I think we all have a sense of the urgency and just the direct ask, as Councilman Kamer made, would love to go out and be able to, experience that firsthand, because I think there's no substitute for that direct, perspective.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I just want to say something. I see Mr. Lash has his hand up, I should say, and so does Raymond Green. But there's one thing I do want to say, and that is we all here on council know, we have an amazing group of folks in our housing division who they work very hard and they do a great job. We are, like most of our departments within the city, we're short on staff due to a number of different reasons. But again, we'll go ahead and listen and collect all the information and make educated decisions. And that's part of the process. I'd like to recommend, I believe, I'm not sure who was first. Mr. Lash, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank Reverend Green, Ms. McCall, and Ms. Mentor for sharing your stories. Just for the record, those of us here within the Department of Neighborhood Assistance, and specifically the Housing Division, over the past year to 3 years, we have offered.
Join the meeting.
We have offered, we have written up over 50 citations on these properties. So we have been out, we have been on the ground, we have been actively at these properties doing what we are supposed to do. And I actually have the pleasure of having our Housing Division Manager on the line for this meeting as well, Mr. Dwayne Greger, whose team has been very relentless, and I am proud to serve with them. And Mr. Greger, if you want to just add anything to what I've shared as far as our contribution in this area, please feel free to do so.
Yes, Mr. Greger, by all means, please, if you would like to make a couple comments, you're welcome to.
No, I believe Mr. Lash covered quite well. We have done a review of complaints that we've received in both complexes for the past 5 years. We've received many new complaints as a result of the work of the tenant unions. We've responded to every one of those. We have orders that we've issued. We follow up on every order that's issued to the owners, and we take action as necessary to bring the properties into compliance.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Greger. Thank you, Mr. Lash. Raymond Green?
Yes, I just want to touch on 2 points real quick. First of all, in regards to the building permits, with or without a building permit, the work is just shoddy. Even when we're talking about just moving the toilet, most of us have houses, and when your toilet overflows, and most of us don't know this, I really just learned this myself with some plumbing issues in my house. When that toilet overflows, technically that whole floor needs to be taken up. So we're dealing with apartment complexes that's been in existence for 50, 60 years, where continuously toilets had overflown and the floor has never been taken up. So we just keep replacing the toilet, and then that sewage is underneath the floor, which causes environmental hazards, which causes violence in people, which causes brain damage, which causes all of these side effects of the issue that we see inside of this housing. And then to Brother Malik's point in regards to the Bill of Rights, we are currently working on a tenants and renters Bill of Rights through this union. That is definitely something we need. And when we start talking about repairs and things like that, just in Erickson in one parking lot, you're talking about for the first time offense, not the second offense, the third offense, the first time offense is $250,000 in fines. That money right there goes into the housing department, which can be used to hire more staff, to fix existing structures, rebuild structures. But ultimately, for 5 years, we've been asking for a place like what LeBron James is currently building, which is a place for wraparound services with it, where doctors are there, where daycare is there, where people can have dignity where they live at, that allows for violence not to occur. We all know violence is an economic and mental health issue. And when you have something like what we're building down on Maple Street with the LeBron James homes, you don't have those things happening because it's community that is built. And ultimately, that's what we're asking for, is a tenants bill of rights, a renters bill of rights, but then investment that allows for all of these agencies to talk to each other and allow us to build a structure, institution of housing where we feel like housing is a right and not a privilege, and where people are able to live with dignity and respect, to where they're able to feel comfortable building relationships with their neighbors. And ultimately, that's going to solve the crime problem in our low-income housing.
Thank you for that. Also, though, to go back to the communication thing that you brought up earlier, which is so important, obviously. The thing of it is, unfortunately, at times people are charged with this task and they do this task and they don't look beyond that. And so I think that's where we have to get to communication. We also have to get, like if they see something, they got to say something, with the unfortunate, I mean, amazing to hear that a baby died. It's unbelievable. And there wasn't checkoffs along the way, flags being raised. It's like, come on, we have to figure this out. So I will tell you the council is committed to figuring this out. I'd like to recognize Mr. Malik, Ward 8.
Thank you. Just two quick follow-ups, Mr. Lash and Mr. Greger. Thank you for the information. Would it be possible for council to get some kind of record or summary of like fines that have been imposed as a result of those orders? That's the first one.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the second is, I think, I totally agree with Mr. Fusco's point, which is kind of, how do we get a better understanding of the process and then think of, how we can better improve that process. And so I don't want to get too far in the weeds today, but Mr. Lash or Mr. Greger, can we just kind of get a very brief summary? What are the circumstances what are the remedies other than fines, and particularly what are the circumstances under which a place would be deemed unlivable and would be shut down?
I'll let Mr. Greger speak to that.
Yes, the criteria are set forth in the housing code. The details, what instances and what conditions deem a property uninhabitable and condemnable to where it can be ordered vacated. The individual inspectors use the criteria set out in the housing code during their inspections to determine whether that call needs to be made on an individual inspection.
And these complexes have not met those criteria in the past?
The discussions I've had with the inspectors that are currently there is that we've only had one unit meet the criteria for condemnation in the past several years that we've inspected.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malik and Mr. Greger. I'm going to go just in order, and then after that, we'll close this and commit to those online here that we will continue this conversation no question, we will be doing that. I'm going to recognize everybody in order. Representative Holland from Ward 1.
Thank you, Chairman Fusco. I just want to sort of confirm my understanding, and it may be either through a representative from the law department or from Mr. Greger. And that understanding is that the change in ownership or other circumstances such as bankruptcy can actually cause the accumulation of housing complaints to essentially reset. Am I correct in my understanding?
Someone.
Sorry, I was just going to answer that. That's something that we're going to have to look into and get a little bit more information on as well.
Okay, fair enough. Then I guess the follow-up question / rhetorical statement is that, and we can take this up offline, either Reverend Green or the representatives of the tenant union. It is simultaneously my understanding as somebody who has practiced in the area of housing law that a fair housing complaint is not necessarily extinguishable through either bankruptcy or change of ownership. And I'm wondering, is there a pending fair housing charge that's been brought by this group of tenants? Anybody?
Yes, Fair Housing and Legal Aid has filed complaints in regards to both of these units and White Pond.
Okay, under both the local, state, or all three, local, state, and federal Fair Housing Acts?
I don't know all three, but I know they have filed complaints. I can find out for you.
Okay, and for the benefit of the group, Federal Fair Housing Act addresses discrimination in the terms and conditions of housing based on, among other things, sex, race, familial status, and within the city of Akron also addresses source of income discrimination. So thank you for that answer, Reverend Green.
Thank you. Dee McCall and then Linda Mobian, and then we'll close it. Thank you. Dee McCall.
Hello. I just wanted to comment on just some of the code ordinance. According to chapter or Title 19, the Building Code, Chapter 190, within the general provisions, Article 13, that's describing unsafe buildings. There are Title 190.501 describes the unsafe buildings and the removal and repair, which we've been speaking on and what Mr. Greger was speaking on. Also, 190.503 is serving a notice to unsafe buildings or structures. And according to the ordinance is identifying unsafe buildings. The Erickson and the Wilbith are both unsafe spaces. So to identify that things are being done within the ordinance, it hasn't been done. So I just want to identify within the city, the code of ordinance, that all housing, anybody who houses anyone has to follow these ordinances, and it's not being followed. So I would just encourage that everyone looks over these ordinances, especially Article 15 and going down the line 190, continuing from 501 to 504.
Thank you. Thank you, Dee McCall, for that. Mr. Mobian?
Yeah, I think she answered one of my questions by providing that information, and I will look at that. Mr. Greger said something about, I guess, condemning a facility. I don't want to misquote you, Mr. Greger, but are you allowed to do this in conjunction with the health department or independent of the health department?
Mr. Greger?
We're independent of the health department. They have their own code and criteria, and we follow the housing code.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Mobian, and thank you, Mr. Greger. At this point, we want to thank everyone for being here. We will let you know this is the first step of many that this council, this committee is going to take with regards to this issue. We understand that it goes beyond Erickson. We understand that there's, like I said, there's a number of steps that we're going to be taking. The first of which, though, is coordinating that meeting, that inspection, if you will, with council. And Mr. Green, I'll work through you on that if that's okay with everyone, and we will coordinate that, set that up for this week if possible, if that works with everyone, and then we will continue this discussion. I want to thank everyone for being here, and we will be taking over Sarah's spot here, but the planning at 1 o'clock is our next meeting. So thank you all again so much for being here, and we'll be lining up that inspection. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Biviano.
So much. Our next committee of the day is the Planning and Economic Development Committee. That will begin at 1 o'clock, so we have just a few minutes here. Those committee members are Fusco, Hamer, Connor, Baylor, and Mosley. Again, it's just about 12:56 now, so we have just a few minutes for that committee. Thanks.
Hi. Sorry. Okay. Is Sarah Viviano online? It's 1 o'clock.
Her
Okay.
screen looks like it was frozen. I think she just jumped out and is going to come right back in.
Okay, thank you.
No
Did
problem.
anybody else at the city just have a power outage?
The power didn't go out, but it definitely dipped in and out.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely saw it dim and come back.
Sorry about that. Dina, is our live stream still going?
Yes, our live stream's still going.
Okay, thank you. Whenever
Okay.
you're ready, Mr. Chair.
All right, very good. We will then begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. I will ask Sarah Viviano to please call the roll.
Fusco,
Here.
Hamer,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Baylor,
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
All committee members are present.
Thank you, Sarah Viviano, Clerk of Council. I would entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. We'll move into the regular list of legislation. The first item is ordinance accepting. We have no public hearings, by the way, so I don't have to listen to that speech that I always got to give. So ordinance accepting dedication plat for the utility right away for the Riverwoods Golf Course Apartments on the south side of Akron Peninsula and declaring an emergency. Is there any questions or comments in reference to this? Wanted to give everyone an opportunity to ask questions. I hadn't heard anyone. I don't know if anyone else had or not, but this is a utility right away in support of that development the council had addressed earlier in the year. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion for a suspend the rules with a favorable report. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. Thank you. The next item is the ordinance authorizing the execution of a development agreement with FF Reserve LLC or its designee, providing for the acquisition, sale, and redevelopment of the property in the Eastgate 2 urban renewal area. Mr. Beckert, you're here on this?
Yes, correct.
Very good.
Here to answer any questions or anything else.
Very good. And this is the development agreement, right?
Yes, this will be to sell the property and to ensure that jobs are retained on the site or created on the site, I should say. So.
Very good. Thank you. And of course, this is, as mentioned last week, this is the first development that we've seen within this area. So we're excited to see this happen and to see this launch, and appreciate all the hard work that everyone had put into it. Is there any other questions or comments from anyone? I see Mr. Malik's hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just wanted to, say really glad that, we're going to see like 1 to 2 dozen and possibly more jobs, and appreciate Mr. Becker, the help of you and the law department and OID in tightening up that language about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. Further questions or comments? Okay, here none. Again, wanted to give everybody a chance to review and have their questions answered. I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept, or I'm sorry, for a favorable report with suspension of the rules.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Very good. The ayes have it. Third ordinance is declaring improvements for certain real property located in the Eastgate urban redevelopment area to be a public purpose and exempt from the real property taxation, declaring and construction rehabilitation of certain real property in a public purpose, providing for the collection of service payments in lieu of taxes. This is in support of a TIF, I believe. Is that true, Mr. Becker? For the development that we just voted on. So this sets the language out for the TIF in support of the FF Reserve Limited Liability Corporations moving forward. Is there questions on the TIF? Okay. And the agreement is attached, I believe, yes. So questions or comments? Is there a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. Okay, great. I'm going to recommend that we go ahead and take time on the balance of the agenda, short of any comments or concerns. We will be having public hearings coming up on many of those. We'll move into the new list of legislation, which is, we basically have, in essence, one item. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to negotiate, enter into, execute, and deliver agreements in connection with the acquisition of the Oliver Okasik building and the financing of the renovation of the Oliver Okasik building for use as office facilities for the city and the state, for use as the new Akron Municipal Court administrative facilities. Obviously, this should be that we've been cheering for this to occur for some time. I know many, especially in the courthouse side, has been waiting for this day to come here in the city of Akron. And many of us on council have been patiently waiting, especially I know the judges have been excited to see this day come. But there is a lot of moving parts to this agreement. It's a very lengthy agreement. There's a lot of different things that we have to look at and consider while looking at this particular piece of legislation. And so I wanted to open it up though to Mr. Volleman, who's here, I believe, to speak on this particular item. Thank you.
Yep. Hi, everyone. And thank you, Councilman Fusco and the members of the committee and other members of council. Is correct. After years of starts and stops, we were finally in a position to move forward with this long overdue project providing new municipal court facilities. The state will transfer the Okasik building to the city of Akron, and the city will immediately transfer it to the Development Finance Authority. The total project cost, including acquisition, is estimated at $37 million. The project includes the construction of a new municipal courthouse, municipal court clerk's office, and for offices for both the civil and criminal divisions of the law department. The city will first apply approximately $15 million from the municipal court special project fund that they have been raising for some time now primarily for this project. And then for the remainder of the cost, the DFA will issue a pair of bonds and to cover the renovation of the building. The debt service on those bonds will be charged back to the city as rent in a 25-year lease. The city will own the building at the end of the 25-year period at no additional cost. The city will sublease approximately 70,000 square feet to the state of Ohio, which lease will start at approximately $1.26 million per year and increases every 2 years thereafter. In addition, the city will use a minimum of 90% of the annual special projects fund towards the rent. Any remaining costs will be paid through special assessments and non-tax revenues. So that is the agreement. That is the deal we have in front of you, and I'm happy to entertain any questions. We also like to recognize, I know John Blickel is on the Zoom meeting. He is the developer. His company is the developer for the project. I don't know, I'm on my phone because my camera on my computer isn't working, so I can't really see who else is here.
Okay.
So
Thank
if we have any questions about the project or,
Very good. Thank you, Sean. Thank you for that presentation. Mr. Blickel, welcome to our planning committee meeting of City Council. Thank you for all your hard work in terms of, like I mentioned early on here in this conversation, that this is something that I know across, across the judicial side, the administrative side, as well as the legislative side. All of us and many wanted to see this day come. And so thank you for all your efforts with regards to this here, partners. Thank you for all your efforts. I'm going to open up the questions though at this time. I'm also, to let everybody on council know, I'm going to ask for time. As previously mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts to this. This has taken literally years to put together, and applaud everyone's efforts and hard work on that. But in terms of council, I want to make sure that we're comfortable and we know we get all of our, we know all we have to, we get everything, all of our questions answered, and that we're comfortable in terms of voting with reference to this proposal. So with
and
that,
Councilman,
yes.
that is out. I mean, that is fine. That is not an issue on our end.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pullman. I'd like to recognize Ms. Mosley.
Thank you, Chairman Fusco. I have a question for Sean. What's the time frame, or where are you aiming for from start to finish?
Well, ideally, and John Blickel can answer questions about that probably better than I can, but ideally would be starting, leave in the first quarter of 22, and we would look to be in there before the end of 23. Is that still currently?
That's consistent with what we've planned.
And second question, I know this is to move the judges and the clerk's office. We're moving prosecutors as well.
Yes, both a combined law department with both the civil and the criminal side will be housed.
Okay. Is there any future discussion about moving police down there? Would it be room for them, or we're going to just leave the police in the Stubbs building?
For the time being, the police would remain in the Stubbs building.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I would also like to recognize and ask if Montrella Jackson, representing the judges, I'm certain, would have any comments at this time.
Thank you so much, Councilman. I just want to say we're very excited to move forward with the project and happy to answer any questions. The judges did put on a journal entry authorizing the special project fund monies.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. Any further questions or comments? Okay, thank you all. Thank you again, Mr. Blickel, for all your hard work, and Sean and administration, judges, everyone across the board. I would like to ask council to really dive in, take a look at this. If you have any questions, take them to Sean, right? Sean, you're the point.
Absolutely. I can either answer it or find the correct person to do so.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Right.
Very good. Any further questions or comments? I'd like to entertain a motion that we refer this item number 1 on our agenda, reference the Ocasek building. Is there a motion to refer?
So moved.
Okay, all right, thank you. All those in favor of referring signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. That concludes our planning committee meeting of Akron City Council, and I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Biviano. Sarah?
Thank you.
Our next committee of the day will be the Parks and Recreation Committee. That committee will begin at 1:45. Those committee members are Neal, Mosley, Malik, Lombardo, and Connor. Again, that will begin at 1:45.